Okay, welcome everyone to the SingularityNET archive bi-weekly meeting. And our meeting issue is now automated. Thank you, Andre. And it seems to be correctly automated, which is good. The SingularityNET archive contains a history of the activities of the SingularityNET Ambassador Program. And our goal is to provide a collaborative platform for the SingularityNET archive to share knowledge, ideas, and best practices. And we welcome contributions from anyone interested in SingularityNET, whether it's a new project, code example, or documentation. We organize our meetings through a kind of stand-up process using the GitHub project board, where we track action items, and I will record who's been present at the end of the meeting. And this week's agenda, I actually haven't drafted one. So as far as I know, it's just going through the project board, unless anyone has any agenda items they want to add to that.
No, I think anything I've got is on the board.
Okay, right. Okay, and then I'll go to the board. Thank you. And we'll start with the first one in ordered by label, which is the Ambassadors Gitbook. And this is shared between all of us. And I think the most recent discussions on this were more to do with what's it for and how do we update it, and how does it synchronize with onboarding.
I mean, honestly, there's nothing to add. Onboarding has finished the Getting Started channel, and I just haven't had a chance to sort of add that to the Gitbook. So I would say there's probably no updates this week, and I will run away and do it as soon as this meeting's finished.
Okay, I'll leave it with, if there is no updates, then I won't add notes or comments to the issue. I'll just, leave it to carry on to the next meeting. Okay, so moving on from there is the next one is the issue for the archive Gitbook for October, which is we're currently in October. Vanessa, do you want to give an update on that?
Nothing really. It's just, yeah, people are adding meeting summaries as they normally would, and since it's so early in the month, there's probably little to say about an overview of the month as a whole. There'll probably be more to say when we get to the issue of September.
Okay, great. That's no worries. That's what we'd expect for the beginning of the month. And I'll move on to the next issue, which is LLMs to create archival fund image. And the last update on this was we're keeping this issue open, although it's got a zero budget issue, to sort of in anticipation of how our deep funding proposal goes. Okay, so, and currently our deep funding proposal is just prior to being voted for. Is that right, Vanessa?
Voting closes on the 10th, so we've got a few days. I don't know if this is a good point to raise whether we should be publicising it more or if we want to leave that for after meeting discussion.
Okay. Okay, I'll put into publicize. Okay, moving on from there to meeting summaries from Ambassador's Town Hall. I just got a message from Peter to say that he can't make this meeting. So
Okay, cool. But he did post already a summary for yesterday's Ambassador's Town Hall. So although the week before that is missing, so I'll ask him about that. Yeah, it's happening, and I wonder if we can close this issue now.
Okay. Okay, so Peter is now posting summaries.
Well, he is. I mean, did we have in the last conversation the idea that maybe it could be a bounty, so Peter doesn't have to do it every time? Was that something that we said or not?
Not according to the notes.
Okay.
But some summaries from
Because
and that's
I
up
don't
to
think I don't think it gets like paid or covered or anything. So he just like does it, which is probably not that fair for him to have to do that every time.
yeah.
When we get to bounties, let's maybe add it as a possible thing that could be a bounty, and we'll maybe talk to Peter and ask him if he thinks that's a good idea or
Okay.
not.
Okay, moving on from there. I mean, as you see, there's no budget for that, but I think that was partly because a lot of the work is being done by Peter. So yeah, but yeah. Should I close this issue then?
Yeah, I think it could be closed with maybe adding a link to the bounties issue or something. If you just take a note of that.
Okay. Where's the our bounties? Okay, I'll just create a link to that. Okay. Um, just oh, where's it? It's gone. It's gone. Meter summaries from Best Town Hall. Just post it in here. I've got need bounties question mark.
I mean, you could put me down as saying that I'll message him and ask if he thinks it's a good idea or not.
Okay, that should go in the bounty issue then.
Well, no, it should go in here, shouldn't it, if we're closing it? That's how we're closing it.
Okay.
Oh, Kenichi's here. Welcome, Kenichi. How are you doing?
Hi, Kanishi.
I'm great. Yeah, thanks guys. I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Cool, cool. We're just going for our project board process. Did message Peter to, sorry, what was that, Vanessa? To,
Just to ask him if he thinks doing it via bounties is a good idea or if he'd rather keep doing it.
okay. Right, returning to live issues. Okay, well, fine. This is quite relevant because we've been discussing this. This is the archive workgroup budget for Q3. There's no cost associated with this because, well, we just did the work. As far as I'm aware, this is closed. Is that your understanding as well, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, because you've put in all the requests that we could put in.
Yeah, so fund requests have
There's
been
obviously some issues that fall into this is the complicated thing, isn't it? That some pieces of work that were done in Q3 are not completed by Q3.
yeah.
So yeah, all that.
But basically, our fund requests have been submitted. There may be maybe some Q3 items not submitted yet.
I'm thinking specifically of the September archive.
Yeah, no particularly. Yeah.
Yeah, I also remember they were mentioning September from this group.
Yeah, because we have a kind of a backlog, we can't close things until until the next month. December.
I mean, I don't know if we want to agree that as a definite thing that the archiving for any month will be submitted as closed in the following month. Because, I'm getting summaries right up until after the end of September for September. So, but the other thing I was wondering is, have we got in that issue, because we did agree in the last meeting that we will now be submitting funding requests monthly, not quarterly. But having said that, does that even matter? Because funding requests probably won't exist in the following quarter, will they?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a bit confusing because the situation is changing. Previously, we agreed to submit fund requests as per the process. Now I'm not sure if TiVo's here or not, but there's only 4 of us, okay, now. But now I think we might raise it in one of the issues actually coming up, which TiVo wants us to submit CSV data rather than a fund request data.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so I'll just leave it at that. But for that, as a status, I'll just say those as kind of statements of fact and then close the issue because as
Yeah.
far as we're concerned, it's submitted and agreed. Okay. So I mean, we can reopen another issue for Q4.
I was going to say, do we need to create a
Yeah.
Q4 issue?
Well, we could do. That might be a good idea, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'll do that now, before Q4, and then we can have a placeholder for discussions around that. We just put that in there, and we'll allocate this to all of us. And that'll be an ongoing thing there. And in progress, the due date will be the end of the year. That will be archive. Right. Moving on. Oh yeah, archive Gitbook for September. So that's kind of, again, it's a bit like the October issue, isn't it, Vanessa? But
Not entirely, because if you scroll down to the bottom, I've kind of done a little summary of what is outstanding. And actually, it's brilliant that Kenichi, that you're here, because one of the questions that I have is some of the things that we have in the standard list of who we expect, who we expect meeting summaries from. I don't know if we need or should have them, because like Writers Workgroup never sends one. Is it that you don't want to, or?
So the summary from Writers Workgroup is actually a bounty. So other scribblers here, like ahead of time, they get to like apply for it. That's what we started doing now. Previously, it was Slate doing it, and so he submits it into the Writers Workgroup channel, and just for the scribblers to get an update. Sometimes he submits it on Duwork. So I guess I have also been thinking about collating all the summaries we've had, because it actually helped after the hack, since all I had to do was just go back to all the summaries that I've seen, all the docs that I've opened on my Google Docs, and I've seen like I said, like a huge list. So I'm trying to like collate everything into one place. So we still have all our summaries from like about 2 months, like 2 months, 3 months back. So yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, so in the specifics of that, what you're saying is that summaries are coming, but this also raises questions for what we were talking about before about Ambassador Town Hall, and could we offer that as a bounty? Because you've just made me notice that there's timing issues, isn't there? It's like if you offer it as a bounty, when does the person who takes the bounty actually submit it, and do you have to chase it a lot and all that? So yeah.
Actually, it doesn't take that long for at least the people that have been picking it up, the scribblers that have been picking up the bounty. It doesn't take that long. It's actually editing it and trying to like because most of the time they don't write it necessarily in the summary that we want, or that the format that is like could be accepted. So everybody writes it on their own, like with their own style. It changes. So yeah.
I mean, I think this is really pertinent. We've got another issue that we'll be talking about in a minute about we're trying to template it. And what we've done is we've got 3 templates which fit with the different kind of styles that we've noticed from looking at how people do it. And what I'm going to need to do in the near future is speak to every workgroup lead and just run them through it and just go, which one do you think fits for you? Do you need it customizing in any way? And then you'll have your own template which fits your group. And the idea of this is going to tie in with the work that Andre is doing about trying to develop a kind of interface where people can add their meeting summaries, and then it will be auto posted to the meeting summaries channel in Discord and to the Gitbook. So it takes away a lot of the grunt work, I suppose, of doing it. But while you're here, when would be a good time to try and catch you and have a chat about that? Shall I DM you, or?
Yeah, you can DM me, and we can set the time. And Friday always works. I can always put it on the
So-
maybe like the schedule for the meeting. So
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Okay, well, maybe we try and do it this Friday then, which will be what, the 6th or something. Yeah, 6th. All right, I'll bob you a DM and we'll try and do that. That's fantastic. But yeah, there is that issue, isn't there, of people will write it in their own style and then you kind of think you've got to tidy it up. Yeah.
Okay, I'll put that as an action item there to
Thank you.
for you to meet with weekly two on meeting templates. And so it's still open, isn't it, September, or should we close? Well, we need to keep it open. for
I
action.
think it needs to stay open for maybe another week because there's still a few that are coming. I mean, Kenichi, on the ones that you're saying that you've got them, but you need to kind of break them up and all that. How soon do you think, and how many are we talking about? How many summaries are we talking about?
I think I have about 5. It seems like yes. So and actually I'm already working on them. Also working on a few things too at the same time, but like I'm working on them, so it should be ready before tomorrow.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. And will you be able to, are you going to post them in one chunk and then I'll separate them out, or do you want to post them all separately in the meeting summaries channel? It's up to you. Don't mind.
I was actually thinking of putting everything into like a spreadsheet, so that way it will have all
okay.
the information there. But I could also
Alright.
post it to the channel if that'll be more comfortable.
It would be, I mean, if you just stick a link to the spreadsheet or doc or whatever it is in the channel, because part of the thing with the channel is it's a way that people can go and quickly have a look and keep abreast of what other groups are doing.
Yeah,
I mean, I know they can look at the archive for that as well, but if
think
you're
the
interested,
I think the idea for the meeting summary channel also came from originally the ambassadors as well. So they, I think people like to see one Discord channel where people can go to see what people's done. So yeah, as you say, Vanessa, if you can provide, Kenichi, if you can provide a link there, that'd be really helpful. But I'll leave that as an action item with you, Vanessa and Kenichi,
Yep.
and
Excellent.
I've moved the due date to next week. Sorry, next meeting, so we can.
Okay. There was another thing I wanted to raise on this. If you could just scroll down to the bottom of there again.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, if you just look at what we're not getting, we are never getting deep funding town hall.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, should it be on our list? Because are we saying that this is the ambassador's archive and so deep funding has no business being there?
Yeah.
Or should, because I don't think anybody is going to give us a summary. Maybe we just have to put a link to the video or embed the video.
Yeah, I would. I mean, there's a couple of options, isn't there? There's a link to the video. There's maybe a transcript to the video. I'm not sure.
I don't even know if there is. I mean, I suppose they probably do have one, but I don't know where we find it and where we get it. Is it stored? Oh, go on.
For the deep funding, we have a few people attending. So I think if we get someone to join, can also be a task. Get someone to join and take a meeting summary. I think Slate or Mikasa, they'll like really interested in something like that. So,
Another bounty. Excellent. We can add that to the bounties discussion when we get there. But yeah, so you think Slate and Mikasa might be people who'd be up for that? All right, nice. Yeah.
Let's make about what you just said there. Okay, so that's some food for thought.
Yeah. Can you just scroll up a little bit again just to let me see if there is anything else that we're regularly not getting? Whoa. Yeah, Ambassadors Assembly. That's the other one. I'm assuming that that is a private meeting and it doesn't get documented. Is that right? Because we should take it out.
As far as I know, I mean, Kenichi, you're an ambassador, is that right?
Yeah, actually that's right. I think it's something we might have to ask all the ambassadors to be sure, because we had a couple of people join just randomly, and it was a fun session having them also on that call, even though it wasn't recorded. So yeah.
I'm just thinking, my gut feeling is that it's a meeting. I don't think they would even record it, and it should, you know, people need a bit of space where they can just talk privately, don't they? So maybe
Yeah.
we should just take it out of the list of things we expect or anticipate getting a summary of.
I'll put that as a decision item.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense because you do need a space, as you say, where, as if you constantly recorded, it can be a bit much, can't it? So, so we won't record the ambassadors assembly for the moment. I mean, that may change if people want to in future.
It's not about whether we record it, it's about whether we archive it.
Do not archive. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's all. Record. Okay. Anything else on this?
Don't think so. Thanks for the time on that one.
No, no worries. Okay, as I said, the due date is the next meeting, and we'll move on. We've done the budget. Okay, the Archive Gitbook backlog. I've just been doing a lot of thinking on this, not action, but so what I need to do, I was just really thinking about how to approach the backlog. And my thoughts are to basically to kind of audit what previous meetings have taken place, okay, at all, okay, and then create a record of those, and that will take a record of them in the Gitbook, okay, and that provides reason to do that, so it provides a framework for what we have to archive. That's really of what further detail we need. Any questions or suggestions on that?
I think in the last meeting we said that we would include links to things like Marrowboard in case we ever get a decent tool that can extrapolate it as text. Do you still want to do that, or does that feel
Yeah, I mean, I'm really going to go back and see what we have available in terms of particularly YouTube.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, also because we lost data from the DWork from Discord, it was unfortunate. So really, I see a sense of urgency. It's just really to capture what actually took place, and I can do that also. I will do that by cross-referencing with TiVo's Miraboard record, but adding links will just be additional work. So I just want to capture,
Yeah, I
what
agree.
what we have, because really just to get. You're right, actually, and that's why I was asking Fly actually in yesterday's town hall, because I believe the latest version of ChatGPT 4 has a way where you might be a way where you can, interpret diagrams, and if you can interpret diagrams, you might be able to interpret a Miro board, but that's quite speculative.
What I think would also be useful though is if you're prioritizing just collating a list of what meetings actually happened, could you also throw in getting a sense of what records there are, in the sense of,
Yeah.
say, like, for example, it'd be good to know how many of them have transcripts that are kind of sitting there in Read AI. I mean, probably few of them, because Read AI didn't get implemented until later, right?
Yeah, so it's what type of records exist exactly. And it's going to be YouTube. Unfortunately, the only other source is Twitter, actually, which is easily often forgotten, but we can search the Twitter account by date. Discord is lost. So what I'm going to try and aim for is when, who attended, that kind of thing, and possibly subject. If I can get a subject.
If you can get that, that'd be great.
Now that's just a starting point, and then if I can get that, then we can go back also, Andre, it gives us some data to work with in terms of any LLM. Yeah. So if we can just ask the question of how many meetings took place in November 2022,
List.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm aiming for. So because I've realized I've been overthinking this because I've been just thinking, oh, I need to go back through each month, archiving everything, and actually, there's no point in doing that because really need an overview. I think that's where I'm at with that. That is the due date is going forward to next meeting. That 500 cost would come out of the next quarter and would cover all the backlogs. So it's still maybe something we need to consider there. But to be fair, a lot of the work hasn't been done for that. So let's make a note of that. Okay.
But 500 for the whole backlog is a bargain, isn't it? Do you think
No,
it
but
should be
it's
higher?
misleading because what happened, I'm trying to tell the story in this issue, because we started work on the backlog, as you can see here, but then we dropped off. So there was a gap. So it's a bit misleading. I think that 500 would only be justifiable if I did this work here. That's what I'm thinking, so. But as you say, well, I think as we said in the last budget meeting, anything we do in any work group is a bit of a bargain anyway, because we're not paying ourselves real costs, are we? So, okay, and this is still open. Safeguards against data loss in Discord.
Yeah, I just left it open because I wanted to check if people felt that we'd shared it sufficiently, and then we could close it. I mean, I've raised it in a Ambassador's Town Hall, and that's kind of all I've done, really. So
as far as I'm aware,
have I done it enough?
I think Felix has created a backlog, a backup system. It's not here. Are you aware of that?
Surely
Andre?
that's just the structure of the Discord rather than the content. Because remember we had that lengthy conversation last meeting about ways to back up a Discord server, and we kind of concluded there's not a satisfactory one.
Okay, only backs up the framework.
Because I'm assuming, so what I'm suggesting is that maybe for future reference, maybe if we could ask Felix what he's used, and if he has got a system, and if he has found something that actually works, we should document it in this issue for future reference. Do you see what I mean? Because we've had that conversation and we've, linked to Discord Explorer and various other things that don't really work or don't do what we need. So if there is something and Felix has found it, it would be good to have it recorded in here. So would you maybe be able to ask him?
Yeah, I'll it's an item against me. Yeah, I said we'll need to keep that open then. Yeah, I'll DM him or maybe I'll tag him in our Workgroup channel. Okay, yeah, I'll do that and we'll leave that open for now. I mean, it's a fair point because we really should know what's going on there. There's no budget against this because it's really just, well, it's not budgetable. This one, so because it's just people talking to each other, but maybe we should charge, but we don't have a charge for this one. Okay, moving on to the next one, which is, and this is under community engagement, by the way. Now, Publicising Archive Workgroup meetings.
I mean, I probably haven't done it as well as I could. I mean,
no, we are returning to do updates at town halls as we should do.
Yep.
We may need to do a bit more effort there. It's just a question of reaching out to people, isn't it?
But the thing is, I think under the other issue, Andre and I have been saying for a while that we'll do a breakout room in an after town hall to kind of talk about the interface and how it's going to help and what it's going to do. And yeah, it just keeps falling off the end of my agenda, Andre. So I haven't really done anything about it. We need to do it, don't we?
Yeah. I also I've been away last week. So
Yeah. That was my excuse. I
Yeah.
didn't need to do it because Andre's away. Yeah, let me think. Yeah, put down for something that we could do when would be a good week for you?
Any week going forward is
Okay.
okay.
Maybe should we look at, because I think if I give myself a target, it will help. How about the 17th?
17th. Yeah, that's good.
Nice.
Okay.
17th of October. I'll put this as an action item here. Yeah.
Yeah, it might help.
So
But also that's after like all the voting and deep funding and la. So maybe people will be more in the mood for a more general
okay.
breakout room.
Maybe have a call before that just to go through how we will present it. And
Yeah, I'll put a couple of slides together and share it,
okay,
and then we can talk about what we want to highlight. Oh, Newman's here. Hi, Newman.
So slides and discussion.
sounds good.
Okay, I'll leave that open because obviously we need to return to that, and it's kind of ongoing, really, a little bit.
I mean, I'm thinking if anybody who is here today fancies jumping on this and being part of it, that'd be cool. Helping us to sort of present that in a town hall. Just DM me or something.
Newman's not volunteering. It's terrible.
Oh man.
You see, the minute you step into the meeting, Newman, we've
Yeah, exactly. I was like,
hey,
wait a minute.
Hey, hold on. Okay, yeah. Again, there's no budget for this. I've been very ruthless about budgets because, I mean, if people think there should be some budget for this, then, but
I don't know. I don't think so.
no.
And it's an ongoing thing anyway. I mean, this is just a one little thing that we're going to do, but it's not the only publicising that needs to go on. So it should just be generic. I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we are tracking the work so we can do a review to see what we haven't spent and that kind of thing. At the moment, it's nothing nada. It is free.
I mean, the thing is, I feel like I've been doing little bits and it hasn't had much results. If we do something that results in people being a bit more aware of the archive workgroup, if we manage to achieve that, then maybe if there's budget left at the end of the year, we should look at it. But, it's had no results yet, so there's nothing to pay for.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'll put that action item there and move on to the next issue in community engagement, which is bounties. And this is all of us again. The last status on this was a discussion, 2 days ago, actually. You put some current ideas for bounties, Vanessa.
Yeah, I just collated the ones we have. But if you could add in, if you can edit that and just add, we thought about maybe meeting summaries of Ambassadors Town Hall and meeting summary of Deep Funding Town Hall as possible bounties.
All right. Yeah, the Kenichi was mentioned in the Deep Funding Town Hall, Ambassadors and Deep Funding Town Hall. But I've made that explicit. So bounties for.
I mean, I suppose the only question with that is that, we don't pay a bounty for work groups to do it. But I think it's kind of fair enough because town halls are not associated with a work group. So
Yeah.
Oh, it's already there. Sorry, it's already there.
Is it?
Make the creation. I already listed it.
Oh, there you go.
Kenichi, I must have read your mind in retrospect or something.
Okay. And there's you're meeting with Kenichi as well, aren't you? So there's is there anything else you want to say on this, Vanessa?
Well, I just want to ask what people think about these 4 things as bounties, and then how do we progress it? How much, we need to decide how much it would be, and we need to get it up on DWork, I suppose, and define the task.
Does anyone have any thoughts on what is a reasonable level of bounty? Do you have any ideas on that, Kenichi, at all?
I mean, for the writers work group, we just do the $10 per hour regular summary. But I mean, if you are putting in the time it to take to edit it, maybe like about $20 max for the task. But I mean, if you have a specific template and all, maybe sometimes they might have to go back and watch the video or something. So I think $20 for each summary should be fine.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
I mean, if we're modeling it on what Peter's doing, it's very minimal. It's like our minimalist template. So I think we could probably go to $10 because it probably takes, if you're in the meeting, it probably takes you 20 minutes to do it.
Right. So yeah, it depends on the level of detail you're doing. So minimalist templates for media summary will probably be more $10. You're saying
Maybe, yeah, different prices for different templates.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something we haven't really thought about until now, but yeah. But also, you know, town halls have a video with them. So we can, you know, we're going to be linking to that as well. So maybe less detail is needed. I don't know.
yeah. It's also how much detail is useful for LLMs, I suppose, as well. That's helping. So okay. Any other comments on this at all?
Yeah, just what about the other suggestions? Do people think
Okay.
they would work? How much would they be? And yeah, just how do we progress this? I'm guessing that it's you as workgroup lead, Stephen, that would have to add a bounty to D-Work.
Yeah. So what a bounty for the Ambassadors Town Hall and Deep Funding Town Hall, you mean?
Well, any of the ones that I've listed.
Yeah, I think any of us can submit a bounty. Is that right? I'm not sure.
Maybe we should share, like, I can take responsibility for one of those bounties. You know, like we share them.
Okay. I mean, what I'm thinking is I undertook to just message Peter and just go, do you think it's a good idea to have the documentation of the Ambassadors Town Hall as a bounty? So I'll do that straight after this meeting. Assuming it's good, then maybe we start by trialing the 2 town halls as bounties because they're kind of, you know, it's maybe easier. But we also, you know, we've got other bounties in that list. I mean, you know, I'm looking at the idea of going through and checking what meeting summaries have been submitted and analysing that. And then we've got the other one of incentivizing using and reporting back on the meeting summary templates. So maybe as our first foray into bounties, we just do the documentation ones. And then if they go well, we have the others before the end of the year.
Okay.
I just wanted to add, I mean, not to seem maybe like you know, just spreading efforts around. Since it's about writing, I think it sounds like something the writers work group could add to their list of tasks that we already do. And but unless if the archive work group feels like you know, they want to have it on their board, I think that's the only thing that separates it. But I mean, the writers work group would definitely take it up. Doesn't seem like.
Yeah, I think one of the problems with meeting summaries is people approach it like a writing task and they write these stories and these essays and they're not particularly archivally useful. So I'd be disinclined to do that. Also, this group is doing this because we want to try and increase engagement with the archives. And if it's seen as just, you know, if we pass it over to writers work group, what's missing, what I'm hearing people saying what's missing in this ecosystem is entry-level tasks. So I think we'd want to see it archivally, and we'd want to see it as an entry-level task open to all. Don't know what other people think. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I do think it should be have a path of easy accessibility on different tiers. And also, I think there needs to be a distinction here between writers and archive. The writers, well, as far as I know, are writing written content, not are doing whereas what we do is archival summaries, which also can be read in principle by an AI, which as we go into our next item, is often templated or formatted in a very formal sense. So that's not the same as writing, say, an article or something more loose about something. Any other comments on bounties at all? Hello?
Okay. So if I could just ask, what is the approach here towards getting more people to see this bounty? So like entry level. So how exactly are you guys planning to like make it more mainstream so everyone can actively see the bounty? And is there like a process for taking it up?
Vanessa, do you have any ideas on this?
Sorry, I didn't quite catch the question. Can you ask it?
Yeah, so I was asking about the approach here towards, like you said, it's an entry level task for people to get to engage more with the archive workgroup. So how exactly are you intending to like put it out there so people can actively see it, and so it's like the information is out there about it, so people, and also like the process for people to like take it up, and I guess there also have to be maybe like a session to educate them about the templates.
I wouldn't really think we need a session. I mean, I think we'd be doing it the same way as any other work group would be doing it, by posting it on DWork. And then, people look on DWork. They do look to see because they're looking for tasks. But, we can also flag it up in all the relevant channels. But I think it's going to be about how we write the task explanation. And it needs, it is an entry-level task, so it needs to be quite clear. And we just need to say, what we expect from people, like how long, or should I say how short it's got to be. We can give some examples of, at least for the Ambassadors Town Hall, what Peter has been doing. And, it's just kind of like, yeah, like that. I suppose there is an interesting question there about, is there an acceptance thing? Like, if somebody writes me a 3,000 word essay and I have to edit it, that's not helping. So, do you know what I mean? I'm just kind of like, what do we do if somebody applies for the bounty and it's just like, what they give us is not what we asked for? Has anybody got any thoughts? I mean, Kenichi, have you had to deal with that at all?
I would say the description box on DWork is a good way to start. Good tool to use there. You can just have the specific template you want with maybe a picture of previous archives that you guys have already and what you're expecting from people. So that way they have like something visual to go with. And I can, on the top of my head, I think at some point, to be honest, at some point you're going to have to like for me though, have a few people that you actually give them a quick session on it, even if it doesn't have to be a call, or even if it doesn't, it's just like via text or whatever. But the point is just to, you have to like educate them in a way on it so they actually know what to bring each time and how to improve that on their own. Then you can now have the idea. It at some point, because if you always have the influx, like there were situations where some scribblers didn't turn up and some scribblers went in like hiatus mode for like a while. So you cannot actually predict or expect people to always be there. like that. And at the same time, some people are just gonna stick around, and you're gonna have to like like actually keep them around. So yeah.
But there's issues of consistency of commitment, Kenichi. So yeah, okay.
I mean, hopefully we'll get a few people who then will do it and will know how to do it. I think based on what we've just said, I'm thinking that we put it up as a bounty, we include in the DWork description both the template that they're to use and an example or two from Peter. If they don't do what we asked, then I don't know, do they still get paid? And then it's down to us to kind of have a little chat and just go, yeah, next time, can you do it?
Yeah, maybe you can, for the first few tries, you can pay them half, because maybe then you can pay yourself the other half for fixing their summary, and you just guide them as well until they get it right, and then you pay full price.
Yeah.
I mean, Kenichi, how do you deal with let's say someone does a task and they don't do it well, do you not pay them?
Wow, that's actually a good question. So yeah, I've had situations like that. Most of the time I try to I do this mentorship session with the scribblers. So most of the time I just reach out to them, probably put it back in the to-do column on the work, and then reach out to them. We have a session, a call, maybe 30 minutes, 15 minutes about it. And we try to like spot if, is it, do we need to edit the article or edit what you just wrote and try to like put it in another light, or do you need a new topic? And then we assess on it together. And in the situation where they do need a new topic, they just get a new topic and start over. In a situation where they want to go ahead and edit it, I give them the chance for a resubmission. When I get that resubmission, I try to compare. And depending on the amount of work the editor is going to do on the task, it will be coming out of their pay. So basically, our payment is based on how many words you write. So based on the number of words you write and hold on, sorry. So based on the number of words you write, there's a particular amount of USD you get and the priority of the task. So let's say it's a $40 task. On that you get the editor gets maybe like about, instead of $10, gets like $20 for having to do more hours of the task.
Right. So a lot of the burden is on the mentor, who has to assess the quality of the work from the person who submitted the work. And then if the work is not good enough, you will look at reallocating work to them and different kinds of work then. Yeah.
There's just a comment from Newman in the chat that I think is useful, where video timestamps at Swarm, people were asked to revise before they were paid. So there's a kind of precedent for that approach, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's how it worked. I'm trying to pull up the DWork task. And it seems like it did go from in progress to done, and then back into review, and then that back to done. And I think Peter might have approved it, and then Felix might have said, no, it's got to be changed. I do remember having to learn how to do it. And it might be kind of cool. It's just like, oh yeah, the first run you do is a half price thing, just to make sure it's all right, or half price. All those things are valuable. You know, that could just be the way it's done, and that would be cool.
But then from what Kenichi, what you're saying, it sounds like it might be valuable to get people to apply for the task, and then when we've got a few people who are interested in doing it on an ongoing basis, we have a little session with them. I mean, I don't know, I think it to me it seems like a very, very simple task, and I don't want to make more of it than it needs to be. But I don't know. I also don't want to cut people out if they feel like they don't understand.
Yeah, also mentorship has quite a high overhead, I suppose, as well. So
it might be, as somebody that, you know, I do appreciate the mentorship, and that's, if it's a beginning task, then you probably don't need a full session, but you just say, hey, look, if you have some questions, and you can just ask in one of the open meetings. But I think that instructions, like good and detailed instructions, and then there will be a body of work. That's basically what the timestamping was. As I recall, I timestamped it far too much detail, and I think that might be the general idea, like Vanny is saying, that people write too much in these archival things or the timestamps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
so
yeah, go on, Tim.
well, then you get and then you kind of have to teach people or help guide people, and you can just say, oh, it can be as simple as, oh, look, it's too long. Look back at the examples and try again. And then if they're like, wow, I'm having a tough time, then you can create some type of coaching and instruction for it. Yeah, but once these, you can just point back to the archive. I'm like, oh, that's what it was with the timestamp. I just looked back and saw other people's timestamp, and it's like, oh, why is mine not looking like that? And figured it out. It was, you have to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you're saying there. I mean, that could be a subject for the after town hall breakout room as well, maybe, Vanessa. I'm not sure. But where you maybe have a separate session where you have so you don't have the overhead of mentoring one-to-one, but you have a kind of workshop, if you like, which goes through how archiving, particularly incentivized archiving, could happen. Also, I mean, the next issue is relevant to this as well, in terms of how we guide and template meeting summaries.
Yeah, I love trying to work it into the after town hall session. That's cracking. We'll do that.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to cover on bounties?
Nah, I think we keep it on. We don't close the issue, and we'll come back to it when we see how it works and see if we want to expand to other bounties.
Okay, great. Okay, on a kind of relevant subject to that, of what we just discussed, is the guidance notes, meeting templates for meeting summaries, which we got. Was a lot of history of this one. There was we were going to present this at town hall, but we didn't do that.
Yeah, so that's the town hall that we've said we'll do in a couple of weeks, which is, oh gosh, what will it be? The 17th.
Yes. Yep.
Do you want to give a bit of background for the benefit of people who are new here, Vanessa?
Sorry, what?
You want to give a bit of background on what we're talking about here for people?
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe Andre, maybe you should say, but it's basically about how we work with the interface that Andre is preparing. It's going to work better if meeting summaries are templated, but we've obviously realized that different meetings and different work groups work in different ways, so we can't have a one size fits all. So after spending a bit of time looking at how people were submitting their meeting summaries and the different styles that people had, I came up with 3 templates in varying degrees. I mean, the final one, if you scroll right down there, Stephen, is the narrative one, and it's the one I really dislike, or I used to. But the more I look at it, the more I feel there's a lot of emotion in those narratives that people write, and it's really interesting. And I think often this is the kind of thing that is missing from this kind of archive, which you get in a traditional archive. You get a connection with the person who prepared the material. And yeah, so I'm glad we've got the narrative option. What we plan to do is take these 3 templates round to every workgroup lead and go, okay, which one kind of fits with what you do? And do you want it kind of customized? So the idea is that each workgroup will have its own, and the interface eventually, Andre, if I'm right, they'll be able to select their work group from a drop down, and it will come up with the agreed template that they have. And yeah, the whole approach of it hopefully will enable us to use LLMs as archival finding aids. Normally it's done in a very different way in a professional archive, and this is the AI version, which, you know, the archives world is trying to find ways to do and hasn't yet found. So it also connects in with tagging, and that's the subject of our deep funding proposal. So it's all part of the same thing. But yeah, Andre, you got anything you want to add?
No, that was perfect.
Yeah.
My issue is right after this one, so I
Yeah.
can show what it looks like if you guys want.
Yeah, I was going to say that Andre is the next issue is on tool development, which is going to be relevant to this. But this also gives some background context into what distinguishes the archive work, say maybe what the writers work group does, Kenichi, because this is really about structured information that can then be fed according into LLMs. What you say is interesting about the template 3 of the narrative sense is how a more loose content will be interpreted by an LLM. That will be interesting.
Oh, we should probably add that we also intend for it to help improve decision making, because
that's right, yeah.
The whole interface will extract people's action items and decision items and bung it into their agenda for the next meeting, so that we don't lose shit the way we always do.
And that's reflected in some of these templates. But I don't want to steal Andre's thunder here. So I'm gonna,
well, let's move on, because
let's move on. So maybe I'll hand this over to you now, Andre, on tool development. But by the way, actually, I should should we keep to doing monthly issues for tool development? So should I create one for October?
Yes, I created one. It's the
I see it. Sorry, you've done it already. Okay. Well, maybe we just cover all tool developments. Well, shall I close this one then?
Yeah, we can close September. I'll show now what I've done for September.
What budget should that be? Or should
it wasn't that much. Maybe
200, 100?
Maybe 150. It's fine.
And this is for development work. Okay, I'll close that and we can return to, I'll jump to the October one.
Yes, I've just put what the next steps are. I can quickly show.
Do you want to share your screen on your? I'm not sure if you have host.
Yes, let's try it. See if it works. Can you see? It's
yeah. Well, you can see that. Yeah.
But oh my goodness, where's the work group? Oh shucks, I think I still need to. There's a newer version than this.
Okay.
This is the old version. But essentially, you will be able to. You can select your work group here. There's a drop down here where you select your work group, or you add a new work group, and then you can choose your templates. So I'm still busy creating these. So we said for full archival, you'll have agenda items, and you can add agenda items. And I still need to add a button that says it's new or it's carried over. So the idea is when I connect it to the database and whoever logs in and they choose their work group, when they choose their work group, it will automatically load whichever template they are using, and it will already populate the fields. So if there were 2 agenda items that carried over, it will show all the information, and they can add actions or decisions in this meeting and then mark it as closed, or if it needs to carry over again, the next meeting it will show again and they can add.
That's handy. So there's an assignee as well and a due date there as well.
Yes, yeah, you can. Yeah, so if you have an action, you can add the action. Obviously, I'm going to do some styling. It's the action item box will be much bigger, so you can write more content there.
Right.
And maybe with a signy, signy seal,
Yeah.
I think
Would that be
you can just write a name.
Sorry, Twork or Discord or no, it will just be a list, won't it?
Yeah, I think we can just write a name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the decision
then,
item, just on the
Yeah,
decision
yeah.
item there, is that so if a work group makes a decision that's captured there and the rationale is the reason for that decision, and the opposing would be people who any dissent?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Not so
Yeah.
much the people, it's the dissenting view, so that that's not lost.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. Can you scroll down a
So-
bit? The just for the sake of, so the tags are how we develop a taxonomy. Yeah. Yeah, that's really
Yes.
useful. Yeah.
So-
Okay. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so we've got these 3 different types of tags as well. So
Yeah.
I think once I start with the styling and it's more readable, then we can
Yeah, sure.
but I also realized once we start working with these work groups, we might have to, because we might make some changes to this again. So I might need to, I'll go and look at the code. I don't know. I think it's easy enough to make changes to these.
Right.
I'll just have to go look. But these ones, these other 2 are quite easy to.
Yeah, sure.
Minimalists and narrative. You just have actions and decisions, and then you have the narrative. Here you can choose if you want a narrative or a list of issues. Then you can add issues.
Right. So a simpler version of the decision structure, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, that's come from looking at how people do it. They write a narrative and then they pull out action items and decision items at the end. So it's just like fitting with the way they work. In the end, it's the same content probably, but
Is it like also defining a kind of minimum bar for decision making?
perhaps.
Yeah, so are we saying then that, because it's been an issue in the past about work groups in general, about hi Felix, by the way, capturing work groups decision making and then recognizing that there's different levels of complexity, isn't there? So some work groups will be much more formal. I'm thinking of TiVo, I suppose, where TiVo does and that's what the full archival template's based on, is TiVo's approach, or partly, isn't it? Where it's very systematic, whereas the narrative template would be more informal.
I don't know if I'd necessarily call it informal. It's just a different way of thinking. It tends to be chronological. People write this happened, then that happened, then that happened. Right. Whereas the full archival approach breaks it into, I guess, agenda items. And I suppose that is sort of chronological, but it does tend to be by topic.
Right.
And I suppose it's interesting that sometimes, well, often you get meetings where people, if you write a narrative, you see how people jump about and they're kind of like, we talked a bit about this, then we talked about that. And then in the light of that, we came back to this, you know, it just gives you, in terms of, I'm thinking of people looking at this in 100 years, they'll get an insight into how we thought and how we worked.
Yeah. On the confirm summaries section, Andre.
Yeah.
Is that to allow us to do quality control?
Yes. Yeah. Just ignore this. This is going to change. So what will happen is once they submit their summary, then it will be saved on a database, and then one of us, whoever gets to do this, will go here. There will be a list of summaries that needs to be confirmed, and then you can look at each summary, and then if it's good, then you can just approve it, or maybe you need to
give feedback as well.
I suppose this is something we need to think about. Is like, if it's not good for some reason, I mean, maybe we need to think about what that would mean. But do we edit it, or do we send it back to the person and go, can you edit it? You know, there's a bit of power and control in that, isn't there? And it's definitely quicker and easier if we do, but you know, should
I
we?
suppose it's kind of like the automated version of what you're doing in the meeting summary channel, Vanessa, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
if you come across something
Mm.
that doesn't meet a minimum level of quality in the meeting summaries, what do you do? Do you
I
comment on it?
agonize about it and I feel awful, and then I DM the person and I go, I've made some changes. Have I overstepped? I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's
but also it speaks to what should, it's more of a broad issue for everyone in the ambassadors program, I suppose, isn't it? What should be the minimum standard for meeting, not necessarily documentation, but also decision making? Is that right?
I mean, I think that's the minimalist template. That is the minimum, really.
Right.
And I think what we've done is we've designed that so that it could support decision making validly,
Yeah.
but you don't have to give stacks of information.
Yeah. I mean, I think that'd be great. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, just wrapped up the other call for the Q3 budget. And the end, it was a lot about yesterday town hall. Somebody brought up our things are not transparent and whatnot in decision making.
Yeah.
And we thought about a solution, and we're thinking about mainly first simple action could be like right now. I think that there's not that much a problem on transparency. It's just like we have too much information flooding around with my reports and dework tasks and meeting notes and the Gitbook. And it might be really difficult for people just to figure out when are important decisions made actually. And idea came up to ask archival Workgroup if it would make sense to maybe have our own page on the Ambassadors Gitbook to only for important decisions, which are made over for the program.
I mean, in principle, Felix, I mean, the work that Andre's doing is essentially creating it potentially, and I know this needs work in terms of not development work, but in terms of agreement from people. We potentially could create a database of decisions from work groups. That's what we could do.
Yeah.
That there's obviously a number of steps that need to happen. We need buy-in from different work groups. You know, it needs to be tested, and but in principle, Andre, if we have those decisions, then we can output them to Markdown, so we can update. Yes, certainly we could update the ambassadors. Let's take the ambassadors Gitbook. We could update the front page, Felix, if you like. Is that what you're thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe on the beginning, just very simple manually. It wouldn't have to be automated, but to see already which important decisions should actually be captured already.
Yeah, and I think there's something there also about logging where that decision came from, because it's interesting to see if different work groups are coming to different conclusions. I mean, my version of this was I'm thinking about the idea of doing something along these lines simply in a Google Sheet, logging decisions so it's searchable, so you can find it. But I am thinking that when we've got this all up and running, people will be able to do this by using an LLM to search the archive for what decisions have been made in the last week, month, year, whatever. I mean, I take your point about having it visually somewhere so people can see it, but yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to look at different, because this issue has arisen, hasn't it, where different work groups have made different decisions about different things. So it's kind of, yes, the ones that are community-wide need a higher kind of acceptance criteria, but it's also interesting to log the decisions that each work group is making and be able to compare and contrast, because we want that fragmentation and the ability for people to decide different ways, right?
And also on this, then I think to start already to just simply map out some decisions on a specific way. Maybe it's easier for the Gitbook clients to consume this as well. And also maybe but because not sure if the LLM would always be the best way for it. But for example, let's say, for example, we would start it, and in 4 or 5 months, we would have, let's say, decisions from the larger program and the decision from each workgroup, to see also, cool, to build some decision trees actually, or relations where we see, cool, which decision led to which follow-up decision actually as well, because I think sometimes it's really important to understand this context, and maybe through some sort of knowledge graph, some sort of stuff, even in a later stage.
Absolutely, Felix. So I think you put your finger on something which is a reoccurring issue in any decentralized environment, where people you sometimes get a lot of repetition, where people forget decisions that have been made in the past, and then are reinventing the wheel, and also some overlap, like who is responsible, what work group is responsible for what. So if we could capture decision making, then we can highlight if there's any duplication of work, who is making decisions for what, that kind of thing. So, and I suppose there's a question of urgency there, maybe. So maybe a quick fix, as you say, maybe do, Vanessa, or we do some sort of sheet first, and that updates the ambassadors work group, or we create a summary that goes even into the meeting summary Discord, maybe. What is the priority, do you think?
Priorities?
Oh, go on.
No, go first one.
No, I was just, why I didn't answer immediately, I was just fanning about trying to search the archive for decision, and it seems to work quite well, although I haven't been marking them as far back as I'd like to. So we could surface a list of decisions, we could put that into another format and try to, I think, list it by when is important, which work group is important, and who it affects is probably important, because I think there's a difference between a decision that is just purely for one work group, we're going to do this, and a decision that impacts the whole ecosystem.
Well, what are you thinking of, Felix? You're thinking of something very simple in terms of one page on the ambassadors work group?
Ideally, yes. Just for very first simple improvement already. And then, like Vanessa mentioned, and I think Tivo gave it a really good shot when he started in his meeting summaries to always put this decision para section on his meeting summaries on the Discord. Right. So to say, cool, we could create this routine already for guilds or work groups to ask them, hey, if you do decisions within your group, please add them as a decision paragraph, and see already how does the Gitbook lens consumes this actually.
I don't think it needs to be a separate paragraph, but it does need to be marked as a decision. So that's what I've been doing. Sometimes it involves a little bit of editing people's summaries, but also that's what the meeting templates that we're trying to push will do.
Yeah. It's also a question of priorities, I suppose, Felix. Like, if the questions are about transparency, I would suggest that we prioritize contemporary decisions that are happening now, and that potentially could be most served by Andre's work, because Andre, you're building a database effectively on decisions.
Yeah, if people use these templates, and I'm glad Felix brought this up, because now I know I need to make a priority of saving the decisions in a way that we can use them like that, presenting them on a web page somewhere. So if people use these templates, we can go crazy with those decisions.
Yeah, exactly, because it's going to, a lot hangs on. I mean, very roughly on tool development implementation. I mean, I know you're early. I don't want to kind of put pressure on you, Andre, but the first thing to do would be to test out the use of the tool somehow, wouldn't it?
Yes.
So yes. How do you envisage that? I suppose a work group maybe like us, like the archive work group, or maybe one of TiVo's work groups, because TiVo is quite well prepared, uses the system. Go on.
Yeah, I think once it's up and running, everyone can use it. If we want to, or maybe it's better, like you say, we first test 1 or 2 work groups. Maybe that's better, because we might run into issues that we need to fix first, and then get everyone on board. But the good thing is if Vanessa starts meeting with these work groups, then at least we will already have like the versions they are, the templates that they prefer. So once we have that finalized, then and we start testing it and everything works, then we'll be ready to roll out it too, so that everyone can use it.
Yeah, it's about who's ready, isn't it?
I'm just thinking about this issue of, is it a decision just for your work group or for the whole ecosystem? I wonder if the template needs to include that. It feels a bit fiddly for people. It's like it'll be awkward.
I had the same thought as you were talking. And we can add a thing next, another thing next to the decision, like maybe does it impact the whole ecosystem?
That's the way. Yeah, that's the ways. Who's affected? That's it. Because I was worried that it won't be that. There'll be a lot of edge cases with, oh, is this a decision just for you or for everybody? So, maybe it's who is impacted, and we could have a drop down of your work group, everybody. Just
couldn't we directly relate this back to the guilds and workgroups themselves, where we know, for example, when translation or video workgroup makes the decisions really for themselves, when we know strategy or process, for example, made the decision, it's very likely that this would imply the larger ecosystem as a whole.
It's something that needs to be. I mean, I suppose from our role is just to build these tools and to make it happen. But there needs to be, and I suppose Vanessa, you reaching out to the different work groups to see. Because it's not much to ask, is it, to say, well, that's how our approach is, to make it as easy as people to capture decisions as possible. But at the end of the day, Felix, it's going to come to who buys into that, I assume there's agreement in principle amongst work group leads and ambassadors to capture their decisions in principle, right?
This is a question I had actually when we were talking about, who's submitted summaries and who hasn't. Is it an assumption that it's not an obligation, but it's something that work groups should do? Or is it seen as, oh, if you feel like it? Because if we're going to use this for documenting our decision-making processes, then it probably should be something that we say, well, if you're a work group lead, you should do this.
I think that's a tricky part because, for example, when we saw, for example, this meeting summaries or maintaining Discord channels or maintaining the D workspace, or in your regard, the GitHub space, setting up this weekly calls, none of this was actually imposed. And I think that's a beauty somehow that we have this emerging standards, but we don't have to come up with a rule and impose it or enforce it to everybody. Ideally outlining a little bit from this regard, like rather creating an incentive which shows people why is this actually good. So to say, let's start, for example, with ambassadors workgroup in this regard, and show, hey, why does it actually make sense to outline it and motivate and encourage others to do the same rather than imposing it to them then.
I mean, we've kind of got that in place in that Andre and I are going to try and do an after town hall to kind of talk about what the tool will do and why it's good. And we're thinking about when it's up and running to have bounties for people to, a one-off cost for work group leads to kind of use it and report back and say this bit is shit and this bit works well and blah, blah, blah. So yeah, if there's any more that you can think of that we could be doing on that, then
I suppose it's habit as well. If you think of the meeting summary channel, it does seem to be, I know some people don't use it, but there does seem to be a habit forming that people are using it and seem to be finding it useful. I don't know, there seems to be a point where it's a bit like the budget discussions as well, what should you expect of a work group, even if they are autonomous? So it's not as simple as just saying, oh, they're autonomous, but they can do what they want. There needs to be some sort of minimum negotiation with the program in terms of demonstrating what they have done, and I would suggest what they are deciding and also what their scope is. But a work in progress, maybe. And thanks for giving an overview of the tool that you're developing, Andre. I think it's great, and we'll can carry on discussions of it in going forward. Any other comments on this at all?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Just to say congrats, Andre. It's looking amazing. It's really exciting to see all this work coming together.
Yeah,
Hey, it's a pleasure.
no, it's great. And a bargain. I think in terms of, I know we're not working for very much here, but
No, I'm learning, so
yeah, I know, but we're kind of developing a decision-making system for the ambassadors program. So so yeah, but it's and an archiving system. But there you go. Okay, moving on from there to the last item, which is Governance Gitbook. We haven't. Let's see what the last discussion was on this. Okay, there was a discussion last time of maybe incorporating documentation from the deep funding focus group, Vanessa.
Yeah, I haven't added it yet. I've been a bit lax, and I'm looking at trying to use this idea I've had of documenting action items and decisions in a spreadsheet with that group, and I haven't really progressed it yet. So I will get what we've got up there, and then it's there.
And the only other thing was to add sources of governance documentation. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this whole Git book needs a bit of a looking at, really, because it's got some great stuff on there. And in the Odin meeting yesterday, Felix, are you still here? Yes, you are. You raised all the stuff that we'd done with kind of the governance framework document and all that. And yeah, I think it just we need to think about what else needs to be on there. It's not an archival Git book. We've had this conversation before that it's not chronological. It's not meant to be an archive. So I think there's questions there about crossovers and what goes in the archive, what goes in here. But this is like a guide to governance. I mean, I don't know if we should have like a references section, some reading that people can, where governance discussions are going on, all this kind of stuff.
Any thoughts, Felix, on this?
Actually, not sure if it isn't the archival matter. I would say it's some sort is so. It just needs to get ready in a state that I think it's mature enough to go into archive. Because right now it's hosted between under Catalyst Swarm Gitbook license. I think ideally in a later stage this is moved over.
That's not what I meant though. I'm not talking about where it sits. It's more about like some of the material in it is kind of about historical, what's happened over history. It's like chronological, and some of it just stands. It's like, yeah, it's two different kinds of thing that are in there.
That's like, what's it for, I suppose. Yeah, and yeah, I kind of, because you can look at it in terms of, it could be like a reference tool, like you say, like archiving it or anything. I mean, that's quite broad because it also seems to be, from deep funding, from Syncom DAO, and all that. Or
at least it should be. It hasn't got much material. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly. The main purpose of the things so far was really just to spark a first conversation, and I would say it's just center of gravity to get people already a little bit in a conversation and thinking about, how do we actually want to describe our stuff here? But much more like an exercise and a training, I would say, process, rather than, cool, we create a white paper or manifesto and then we set it into stone. Like, it was much more meant to be an evergreen.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. That's what I mean with the difference between archival and I mean, one of the things that we have talked about in these meetings, and I think elsewhere as well, is governance baselines and kind of trying to establish and capture how we govern now, so that when we do an experiment to say let's try governing a different way, we've got some data to measure against if it is an experiment. But yeah, that evergreenness, I think it's much clearer with the ambassadors Gitbook, because that just aims to have current information about what the ambassadors program's all about, and when it changes we don't keep the past version. It's just, oh, this is the current version, whereas the archive is a constantly, you know, chronological record of what has been going on, and I think that this Gitbook is kind of in between the two.
Fair point too. Would agree on that.
I mean, another thing I was going to do, I'm not sure if I can find time for this, was like the document, the original document that we drafted, the governance framework I'm thinking of. I mean, it kind of went to a point. I think it's to tidy all that up and actually to just capture that as a kind of a historical document. Partly because I think some elements of that proposal were very useful, you know, like in terms of, you know, how you framed it transactionally, I suppose, Felix, you know. So not something that necessarily went ahead, but something could be referred to in the future.
Exactly. Main idea was to split it up. This is when Vanessa helped a lot as well. Also with the comments to say who actually, because from my perspective, it's not that important what document is written. For me, it's much important who writes the document, especially when it comes to a governance thing, for example. To say, how can we translate this on the blockchain actually, and use blockchain as library actually in this regard, showing who are the responsibles for this document actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I think there's a kind of missing link here between SingCom DAO and the ambassadors program approach to governance, which I think it's good for sometimes to step back on that a little bit, you know. What was great about the document which you started was there seemed to be a connection there between SingCom DAO's approach and the ambassadors program approach. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, like it was funny because we started the document just before some weeks, actually 2 weeks before SingularityNET Foundation introduced their first document introducing the move towards SingCom DAO.
Yeah.
And this wasn't coordinated. I didn't knew about this actually. That was announced. So it just fit really well together. And then we saw as well, okay, in the document, these are missing parts actually. It's more focused on the ambassadors program itself, but didn't yet emphasize a lot on how does the framework there actually aims to relate to SingCom DAO at large or deep funding.
Yeah, I was kind of part of the reason why personally, I've kind of stepped back from it, because it felt like it feels like the ambassadors program is a bit like a work in progress, Felix. So whereas SingCom DAO is it's quite a strong statement, if you like, from deep funding, if you like, or from Jan, where he is making, go on.
Actually, not really. Both are very much work in progress.
Right.
Just from our side, it's fully done from community. And from SingCom DAO, it's really much more SingularityNET Foundation internal effort. Though they have no idea how to get there. They introduced a little bit as first steps towards this direction, and they know very well this has to be a exploratory
Yeah.
way. It's a little bit like Voltaire in Cardano, right?
Yeah,
Okay, this is
no,
where we are
absolutely.
wanting to go to, and we have fucking no idea how to do so. Just IoT doesn't say they have fucking no idea how to do so, right?
But from an archival documentation point of view, I feel that we're kind of at the stage where we're just trying to capture what's going on, and it still feels very much like a work in progress, certainly on the ambassador's side.
Definitely work in progress. Yes.
Yeah. So we kind of just need to be, there is a place for the Governance Gitbook, and that's to document what happens. Is that what people think? Vanessa, what do you think?
Not exactly, because I think that makes it more archival then, and it's just like, well, why shouldn't it be integrated into a wider archive? Maybe the ambassador's archive is a section of a wider archive.
Yeah.
I feel like the Governance Gitbook is more a place of, oh, how am I gonna call it? Just where we put stuff about governance. It's like I can't really formulate it. But I don't think it's about listing what happens. It's about collating thought that comes out of the ecosystem, is what I'm feeling. I don't know what you reckon, Felix, but...
Well, the issue's still open. And it's an ongoing conversation that we have here. So there's still scope for, as you can see here, it did start with the governance framework document and proofreading and all the activities associated with that, and then move forward from there. So it's just, we're ready to pick this up, I suppose, is the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Are we ready? That's a good
question.
I
mean, I don't. I mean, my position is that it's that tricky balance between not specifying, not projecting what you think governance should be on other people necessarily. Yeah. So I'm quite interested to see personally what emerges as governance in the ambassadors program, and then to sort of document that, if you like. But I suppose you're saying that's archival, Vanessa.
Not exactly. When you put it like that, it's not quite archival. And I was thinking the other, I don't know if people saw in one of the Discord channels that Las Ines was asking about any reading on governance, and there's a little chat going on. And I'm just thinking, where do we put stuff like this? Where does it live to make it a little bit more evergreen, the kind of inputs and thoughts that people have about governance? Whether it's reading lists or whether it's, oh, I was thinking this the other day, or changes that are actually made to our governance baseline and, developments in how we govern ourselves. These are all fodder for this Gitbook, I think. We just need to have a bit of a brainstorm with everybody about what should go in it, don't we?
Yeah. The government materials and discussions somehow. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a work in progress, so we need some sort of, focus for this. If anyone, any final comments on this at all? I'll take that.
The main part, just where I would like one main blocker for me on the governance thing. I usually love to set things up and then get my fucking self out there and making sure others take it forward. In governance workgroup, I didn't saw yet so far anybody really willing to step up. There was 1-2 times the attempt, but there seems to just be too much friction. So I feel a little bit obligated, like, fuck, I can't step out there yet, but I would really love to. And so when thinking about this, the main topic for me right now is really just to figure out the effective way how we can create, when we say it's an evergreen document, so we would assume that there's constantly adding and changing, because ideally the document reflects the emergence of the ambassadors framework itself, and does actually not that much outlines what should be done, but much more documents a little bit on the way, like what has been done actually in this regard, and to say, how can we bring this as effective as possible on the Cardano blockchain. Like, no real idea on this yet. But
I think there's a kind of experimental aspect to this, Felix, because it does feel that that's where we're at, you've kind of posed that question, if you like, to the ambassadors program, where look, you know, there is this issue of governance. What do you think community should happen? And there's an aspect of that where we don't want to dictate to people necessarily. But then on the other hand, people do need to step up, don't they, Felix?
Yep.
Yeah. But I think the problem with that is that we can't. Yeah, that has to happen of its own accord in some ways, or I don't, or maybe it's a subject that just needs to be percolated more around the ambassadors program and will come of its own.
The main topic is just that most of the current ambassadors are, say, not that well familiar with Web3 ecosystems, actually.
Yeah.
And when it comes to governance, we can't expect that much, let's say,
yeah, I know.
highly knowledge-backed stuff there. So my main attempt on this is when I started to introduce other projects, when I reached out to Kenrick and ResearchDAO and etc., to try to bring in already some knowledge and expertise on, let's say, Web3-based ecosystems.
I think, some of the round tables that Governance Guild does, Odin as well, so I think there's scope for, and I would support it, broadening this out, to other people. And to, I think that would be great, to have more, rather, so we don't have one person saying, this is how governance should be,
We have words for this.
Yeah, so I mean, it does feel that that's what's needed, is some broadening out of it, and some kind of facilitation of that somehow, but maybe it's a time and place,
It feels to me like we have got a couple of other priorities that are a little bit more urgent, but that's good because that gives us a little bit of time to mull it over. And I do think the archives workgroup is quite a good place for some of this to sit, but also the governance workgroup. And maybe there's just a tie-in there, and maybe we should just, I don't know, bring it up in a governance workgroup and then take it out to all the places that we just mentioned. I mean, it'd be good to raise it in Odin, it'd be good to raise it in Governance Guild, and just, see what people think and see what they've got, and then maybe we can bring it back to a meeting here and just go, well, here are some ideas.
Yeah, I mean, as Felix is saying, there's not really a depth of understanding of Web3 governance in the ambassadors program, and that's not a reflection at all. And but there are, in the wider network, there are people who can assist with facilitating a broader discussion. And I do emphasize the need for a broad discussion on this. It can't be just dominated by one view, or it needs to be percolated somehow. And that takes time, to be frank.
And I think it's also valid to have discussions that are, to an extent, led by people who don't feel they know a load about it. It's a bit like the sandbox. The AI sandbox is not for people who are AI experts. And I think sometimes you surface different things if you have a conversation with people who are like, well, I don't know all the ins and outs, but here's how it looks to me.
I mean, do you remember Governance Week, Felix, from about a year ago? Or was it more than a year ago?
Oh, yeah, definitely I remember.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
a lot of time.
That was so long ago. That would got to be 2 years ago, surely.
Oh God, we're getting old. But something like that would be good, Felix, where it's more about creating a place, a scenario where the ambassadors or the work group leads or whoever's involved in the program can come together and mull over these things, in a kind of way that's not prescriptive, particularly, you know, but, you know, doesn't say, oh, this is the right way to do it, but more poses questions. What do you think?
Definitely. And I think also, like with the ambassadors program, we have some advantages what we don't have in other ecosystems, right? For example, Governance Guild, Odin, they're not funded.
Yeah.
They don't have this monthly budgets, and they don't have this already quite well established, I would say, structure as ambassadors program has established so far, where we have Treasury Guild, archival workgroups, strategy, whatnot, bunch of stuff actually there, and we have this funds available as well. I think ideally we can see this as a sandbox where we can play out these advantages in a way that it should not only ideally help the ambassadors program, but should be much more an agnostic approach where we know a bunch of communities and projects have exactly the same problems. How to create the white paper, how to create the manifesto, how to decide what should be in there. I mean, there's so many people like really focusing on the same challenge, and that we can use the ambassadors program as a sandbox to say, we have here really quite nice environment to bootstrap stuff, but only if we are able to pull in other projects and to help us together doing this together and creating it much more cross ecosystem collaboration than only ambassadors program inside, I think.
I mean, one way forward on that for the, I mean, I don't want to speak for the governance work group, but I suppose the governance work group could reach out to, you know, I think Odin or Governance Guild. I know Governance Guild are planning some events in the next few months, potentially, you know, which could be a forum for some of these discussions. The same with Odin and others, I'm sure, as well. So maybe that's what we should prioritize, is to, you know, as you say, Felix, is to invite a combination of inviting people in and having more roundtable discussions.
Maybe
You go.
maybe this Governance Gitbook doesn't need to be only ambassador program focused, like you mentioned. Maybe there's other groups can contribute here as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's more about, again, expectations as well. It's not to be, I think often people can feel the weight of governance on their shoulders a little bit, and it's not really appropriate, really. It's more, you know, people can feel, oh, I don't know about governance, so I can't say anything, and then other people have too strong views, and I might include myself in that, or other people who, oh, this is the way to do it. Well, that's not necessarily the right approach. It's more because there's an experimental impetus here, you know. So it's about, being as open as possible, I suppose, particularly with something which can be quite controversial, governance as well, you know, maybe.
Surely not.
That's what governance is about. I think I think a really indicator of healthy governance is that there is always controversy.
Yeah.
Once there's no controversy, then something is going really wrong.
Yeah. But again,
I think we need some drama sessions where people actually dramatize these, and people are allowed to say, no, you're talking shit, without it being personal. I think it'd be hilarious. But seriously, what I'm thinking is that from the point of view of the actual Gitbook, I'm going to try and think, and I think we all should maybe try and think about how it could be structured so that it captures the things we've talked about as it needing to capture, but it's structured so that new things can fit into it. Because that's what I think is missing just now.
Okay. So we need like assault governance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. They can be led by Felix. He can run a Gestalt session, Felix, on how people's personalities and spirit can be expressed.
Absolutely.
And for me, documents comes from docare in Latin, which means to teach, as far as I know. And governance for me is a lot about conversation, actually.
It's funny how
I think
document comes from the same root as education.
exactly. And when it comes to governance, most of governments always rely on documents, which actually means governance is nothing else than about education, actually. And I think this calls, what I also ideally had the idea with the governance workgroups, calls was just to train people to communicate governance with each other, because a lot of people are afraid of it, right? And some other ones have, like you just mentioned, some don't feel comfortable, other ones have very strong opinions. And ideally that the ones with strong opinions are able to maybe step back a little bit from their strong opinions, while in the meantime, teaching and empowering the ones who don't have strong opinions yet to build some. And to find this common ground where whatever ends up, we have this common ground where conversation can happen. Because for me, this is governance.
I think
It's
that's
common ground.
Yeah.
I mean, what I
go
think
on.
is super interesting there, though, is that I think often people do have strong opinions, but they just don't know that they have them. And also, I would say that an awful lot of governance that goes on in the world, you know, in the widest sense, is not around documents. I'm interested in the moment in kind of micro governance, how we govern our personal relationships with our best mate, how we govern our families, how we govern the little things that are never written down, because those things spiral out towards how we think about bigger governance issues. But yeah, there's an awful lot of decision making and governance that goes on that is completely removed from the idea of structured discussion and documents. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's just that that is what a lot of people work with, and they don't realize that that is governance. They're making decisions and they have got something to say.
Yeah, it seems to be a similar sort of lesson in even places like Intersect, where what happens often, and maybe it's a big lesson for all of us actually, is that you have a very strong opinion about what decentralized governments or whatever should be, but it kind of might miss the point a bit, where you kind of, it's not the first thing you need to start with. It's more about what is the setting, you know, where do we all live, if you like, you know, and then people bringing their views, if you like, of what governance is or should be, because we're often getting a situation where, like you see this in SIP 1694 a little bit, where they say, this is what we think governance should be, and it becomes all about a discussion around that, whereas more maybe a better approach would be what is how does governance affect you? You know, what does it mean to you? You know, like more of a process of discovery, maybe. But on that note, because that was quite a lengthy discussion on this, but very fruitful, and this issue remains open, and that's the final issue for today's meeting. Thank you everyone for coming and contributing. And if there's not any final thoughts or any items to discuss more, I will now stop sharing and stop recording.